Welcome to Vegas Circle with Paki Chris, and today joining the circle with us, we are excited to have founder and CEO of Sirqul, which is a software company in Seattle. He is an MIT graduate, was an early in social startups, author of 41 issued patents, and he led Amazon's mobile commerce initiatives. In addition, is a tech co-founder of Amazon Web Services, also known as AWS. So welcome to the circle, Mr. Robert Frederick. So how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so just to start off, man, we got to say this, man. We got a mutual friend. I appreciate him connecting us, Dean Gray from Skylab Apps. And we were destined to have this interview with your name having Circle at us, Vegas Circle. We had to have you on.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know why, as I said before, I think you spell it weird. I don't know why.
Tell us, what made you start Circle and what is Circle for our listeners?
Okay, so after doing work at Amazon and doing 2 startups, what I wanted to do with Sirqul was to actually create a platform for enabling others. And so Sirqul is about the combination of all of the things that has basically come together to actually help me with my success and with other people's success and the various projects and applications and technology, you name it, and want to put it all together in one package, right? So 360 degrees, a circle that others could basically benefit from. So that is what Sirqul is about. What we are is a technology company, a platform that allows developers and third-party customers, I guess, create an ecosystem where that ecosystem allows for them to generate revenue, create social sort of capabilities, and also to understand in physical space, and I'll get to this in a minute, how to actually understand movement and ways in which a physical space is being used. Almost like how people use the internet, and you can sort of see how they move around the internet. We take that capability from the internet and bring it to the physical world.
Is that, utilized for, like, say, as an example, you have traffic data, and that's something that's very physical, and you're going to basically be able to process that data and use it in a functional way?
Yes, it's more like, let's say I'm walking down an aisle in a grocery store. Grocery store is really big. It has a lot of products in there, a lot of items that need to be classified, and the actual people who manufacture and distribute those products put them or ship them to the store and have no idea what's happening in that store.
Oh, wow.
What if I can tell you, just like how you can point and click and navigate from page to page on a website or across multiple websites, what if I could tell you what people are doing inside your physical space, as if you were tracking their movements if they were online? And we can do this at Sirqul. That's what our patents are all about. Without having to install applications and just without using video, without using cameras, and we can understand the movement and behavior and then trigger different behavior patterns. And that's the key. So not just in commerce, but we've been in schools, we've been in assisted care facilities, we've been in, let's call them hospitality, hotels, casinos, and we've also been in office buildings to understand how people engage on a campus, if you want to think of it that way, with different members of different teams. It's a lot of fun. It's bleeding edge technology, and I really enjoy what we're doing because it can change people's lives and change people's behavior and change people's awareness around what's happening around them.
It seems like infinitely undervalued opportunity there. That's something that we've been doing, historically for such a long period of time. And like you said, if I'm walking through a store, nobody knows what products I'm looking at. But if I'm on a website, everybody knows what I'm looking at.
Exactly. So imagine, and without going too deep in this, but just imagine if you're Coca-Cola, if you're Pepsi, if you're a cereal company, if you make wine, you know what I mean? Or if you're like a Frito-Lay company, a conglomerate, CPG is what you call them, like consumer packaged goods. If you can basically now say in this area of town, at this one particular store, the behavior patterns of people who look at item number 1, item number 2, and item number 3, the chance of them being interested in my product or even knowing about my product is a certain percentage. And if I can get those items to go into the cart, it just kills it. Yeah, I mean, now I have intelligence, and that intelligence allows me to work with the actual grocery store or the shopping mall or the chain store to get more items in the hands of consumers. And
Yeah.
we call that IoT. And
Okay.
and a lot of people, if you look it up, they IoT is Internet of Things,
Mhm.
but we go beyond Internet of Things, which is where you put devices out, they do things, and they're dumb, basically dumb devices, dumb
Got it.
sensors, those types of things. We call ours intelligence of things. They have a specific purpose,
Mhm.
and that purpose is to enhance people's lives and to actually make the experience joyful,
Mhm.
and also enable them to find out new things that is happening around them without having to even ask or pull out a device. Things just happen. And that's what we are trying to bring, that world where your environment adapts to your presence.
What's super interesting you say about that is it's funny because we're predictable. We also have so I know exactly what you're getting at. It's like if I go to the store, I think I'm going to have my to-do list or whatever's on there, and then you impulse buy and all of that. So what you just said is very interesting to me, whether I don't want to get into some of the names, but the Costco's and things like that out there.
Oh
It's
yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Very,
mean,
very interesting.
and people try to put the products in places where it will increase your impulse buy.
Of course.
And trust me, our technology, even if you look online or if you go on LinkedIn, you can see that what we're doing is we're telling people where they should place things so that
Got it.
they can actually get that impulse buy and have increased awareness and increased
Got it.
intelligence around getting people to just say yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and y'all are
Yeah,
very
you're
good
gonna.
with kids too, because you got the
Oh,
kids
oh,
setting it up. Oh my lord! But have my kids go to the store, they know exactly where to go. It's funny, man. Good
well,
stuff.
the fun part is if because we don't just do it for stores, we also do it for like stadiums.
Got it.
We've worked with, I think we can probably claim that we're one of the only companies that has worked with most of the major league sporting leagues, I guess, to
Okay.
actually understand the flow of 60,000 to 90,000 people coming in and out of various stadiums, or even 30,000. We've
Mhm.
even done, I forgot about this. We did not only college, but we've also done arena football. That was fun. I don't even know if you guys know what arena football is, but that was a fun
Yeah,
event.
we do. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yep.
You'd be surprised, but if you can get people to turn left or go to this concession stand, or don't, stand in line for 20 minutes at this one restroom, but they can go a little bit further with a little bit of signage and basically be in and out in a matter of like a couple of minutes. So it changes the game. Like my wife, she doesn't like to go to like sporting events because she always has to stand in like these long lines. But if you can change the behavior, you could change that experience, you start getting people coming back to the actual stadiums, filling it up, and enjoying themselves because they're not standing in line the whole time.
You can
Good
identify the
tips.
worst parts of the experience and kind of adapt around it. That's it's amazing.
Exactly. Or if you're in a hotel, and especially in Vegas, because you're in Vegas,
Yeah.
imagine that check-in line or the checkout line. That's what we want to get rid of. We want to actually get those lines down to nothing. You just walk by, drop stuff, and move on. You know what I mean?
Makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. No, and you're seeing a lot, especially with COVID, people don't want to be, in contact.
Exactly.
So it makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah, you've got a very interesting story. So I know, we've talked offline too. So,
Yeah.
with what you've done, prior to starting Sirqul, you actually sold your first startup to Amazon. Is that correct? Back in the day?
In 1999, it goes that far back, 20 plus years. But the main thing here is started, actually left school, did a startup, I was, I believe, the first employee at that company, took over a particular part of the technology and a division, if you want to think of it that way, grew the team. It was still a small team. Then it's a fun conversation. I won't go into it too much, but let's just say that we ended up in Seattle. We literally weren't sure what to do while we were here, and came across someone unplanned who the CEO of that company was basically saying, hey, let's go have lunch with them. And it turned out to be someone at Amazon. And and we had a demo that we had set up. And that demo, I guess, took us from the lunchroom to a meeting room to showing off our capabilities to, members of their team, all the way up to, I believe, the CIO,
Oh, wow.
the chief information officer. And we showed them stuff that was working that they could not believe someone had done outside of Amazon. And let's just say within a few months, I was on a plane and I was moving to Seattle.
So you've done a lot of early, initiatives back in the day where it's like you were working on Bluetooth before it was Bluetooth. I don't even know what it was called back then.
Oh, yeah.
What were you working
Pervasive
on?
Computing was what it was called.
What was it called? Say it again.
Pervasive Computing.
Okay.
Intelligent Agents and Pervasive Computing. That's what they were calling it at the Media Lab. And what pervasive computing is now is anything that's on your mobile device, like a cell phone. That's a pervasive computing platform. News of the future was what it was called back in like the early 90s, which was, I need to be able to have access to news anywhere, anytime, right? And information. And then the final thing was intelligent agents. And I've built Sirqul based upon these three components. Intelligent agents are these little pieces of software that go out and do things on your behalf and answer questions and give you information before you even think to ask it. And an intelligent agent basically would be Siri or Alexa these days. It's like as you're walking into your house, you ask Alexa, like, what's the weather outside? Play this music, do this, do that for me. Engage with, turn on the lights, do those things. That's what that first startup was actually focused on, was as you walk close to things, your environment changes. And to think about, that was 23 years ago, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
That's crazy, right?
What made you come up with that? Were you at MIT or something, just thinking about
Yeah,
it?
it was,
Yep.
and actually, I have to give credit where credit is due. I wasn't thinking fully about that at the time. I was thinking about other web-related things that you can do, internet-based. It
Mhm.
was someone who came and visited me at the Media Lab, who basically opened the door to the physical space, aspect, to take things that we're working online and bring it to the physical world. That person is the person who then had that relationship, the CEO of the company, and took me under their wing. And then he didn't stay at Amazon very long, but I did. I was there for at least 7 years or so. And we went through, and it was release after release after release. And, you don't go around with getting, a few patents here and there, but it was literally release after release after release. And that's where I learned the value of being able to engage and interact with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people way ahead of time.
What's curious to me is, like, you take this time to build these startups, platforms, it's cutting edge technology, really forward thinking stuff. You're really changing, like you said, the physical environments. How does that feel, making that decision to sell that startup? It's something you put time into, something inherently is going to be successful. Do you start with the intention of selling it one day, or you start with the intention of building it into a huge environment?
So anybody who starts up a company who says that they never had thought of, potentially having an exit is not being honest. That's number one. Number two, an exit doesn't mean, selling the company with a whole bunch of money. and then, being on a yacht, and living the high life separately and not having to work again. That's one way of thinking about it. And the other way of thinking about it, which is the way that I was blessed. I was given a whole bunch of opportunities, and I wanted to actually, instead of taking, let's say my chips and I'm doing the Vegas thing and keeping them, close to the fold, right? And holding on and hoarding them. I wanted to actually share what I knew and enable other people to actually succeed. And that's the thing that led to my interest in Amazon Web Services in general. Was I came from an environment where if I had access, if we weren't acquired by Amazon, and after going into that large company, at the time I was thinking it's large, but now I think they have, let's just say, a lot more people working there than they did when I first joined in '99. I think, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I think it's a very large number.
Yeah, it's huge though in the old world now.
Thousands anymore, right? So the main point here is I saw something. I saw value. I saw a way of getting those same kind of capabilities out to third parties who could benefit from them. But I also worked for Amazon, so I had to think of how I could actually even create something or work on something or expose something that later I would be able to use myself when I left. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. It's like enable others. And even our platform, our product is called Ease, which is all of these words that begin with E, like enable, empower, you know what I mean? More efficiencies, you name it. If it starts with an E, it's basically what our platform was about.
It's good branding. I got to ask you, with dealing with Alexa and Siri and everything, you feel like all these listening devices, how do you feel about listening devices in your house? Like, I got to ask you that.
It sounds like you might have heard something before. So I got a little, I'll tell you this right here now. I have voice recognition patents to my name, right? So we were building solutions. So this is the joke. When people were buying ringtones, and I know you're young enough to remember that. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You're young enough. When people were buying ringtones, we at Amazon were putting out capabilities to have big screen TVs delivered to your house that you bought from your phone. You know what I mean? That was literally, what we were doing back when ringtones were becoming popular.
Funny.
So millions of dollars worth of inventory revenue was basically being generated through a cell phone when you used to have to triple tap. You remember that? Okay. So at the same time, a few years later, our group was called Amazon Anywhere. So we wanted people anywhere at any time on any device to be able to access any Amazon service, right? You can probably tell that's also branding. It's been basically drilled into me all these years. I can remember it because, that was our group. Yep. And the idea ultimately was, if you can buy from a browser, we didn't really care about that. We wanted to make it possible for people to always be thinking of an Amazon sort of transaction, right? Or think of Amazon when they are thinking of commerce. When a transaction is information going back and forth, right? It's not just buying an item. So the idea ultimately is we would then go through the process of what is the best way to get that information? Well, why not through TV? Well, why not through voice? Well, why not on your mobile device? Then ultimately, why not, if you're an application developer, through programming? And then you can make a request from your program and pull down that information and then offer it to your customers. And that's the genesis of how Amazon Anywhere, that group, sort of morphed into Amazon Web Services.
It sounds like you guys were extremely successful. Amazon has definitely made a big change in 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me just put it this way, because just like how you guys did at Sirqul and through all of the different companies that I've worked for, whether it was, I'll go backwards, the social networking company that got sold right before I did this particular venture. The company before that, let's just say, was Amazon, right? And the company before that was the startup that someone found me when I was actually at the Media Lab. And the idea ultimately is we all are, standing on the shoulders of giants.
I gotta ask, you're always at the beginning of the next big thing. And
I hope so.
do you think you just look at the world differently than, say, the average person walking around? Do you see these technologies like implemented in real time, like just in your head, and you determine these processes after the fact? Or is it something that's slowly evolving as you're jumping into a particular project?
Well, I have two answers for that. I had to think about it for a second. Number one, I'm a futurist. So I
You can
have
tell.
to think of what you're going to be doing in the future. I'm a huge sci-fi person. I'm always thinking about what is going to happen, how our lives will change. And that's something that has been with me ever since I was a kid. My father is an inventor. My mother is an entrepreneur. Both of them are my actual role models. If there's anybody that I'm trying to be, I'm trying to live up to. It's my dad when it comes to inventing and creating things, and my mother when it comes to the business. Does
That's
that make
awesome.
sense?
No, it
Yeah,
makes complete
interesting.
sense. Yeah, especially
Yep.
being a futurist. I gotta ask you because we talked a little bit
Go
about
ahead.
social. The Netflix special, The Social Dilemma. Did you watch
Yep.
it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I got to get your
It's about
perspective
right.
on it.
Well, what did I just say? I mean, I'm connecting the dots, right? So
Yes. Yep.
if I'm telling you that we have algorithms and we have capabilities and we have devices that can sense your movements and can change screens to actually influence your decision making without you even thinking about it, where a screen could be the price of an item. The screen could be, hey, you were at steak, you were at potato chips. Maybe you should buy some of this beer or this wine because it goes well with that. Instead, we used to have people inside of the store who would sort of see what you have in the cart and then make a suggestion. I'm talking about the actual cart itself or the screens or other things that are changing as you're moving by, actually subliminally trying to affect the decision making that you're doing. And that it's the time is now. It's not just social. It's algorithms are here. They're dangerous, but they're also helpful. And it's knowing how to sort of be on the razor's edge of both sides. Like you want people to think for themselves. You want people to do the right things. You want to make their lives easier, but you also want to there's a reason for putting these things out there so that you can affect change. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the human behavior and I mean the profit and marketability for different things. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So you definitely connected the dots behind the scenes with social, especially with marketing in stores and how things have
Oh yeah,
transitioned. It makes a lot of sense. I do also got to ask you for your
sure.
perspective on kind of like the benefits and risks of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as African American, I
Yeah.
don't know if you can tell, but the main thing here is when it comes to artificial intelligence, there's bias.
Mhm.
And I'll be blunt, the bias is based upon the bias of the person who programs that artificial intelligence and what information you give. So if you create a system that is inherently biased, then that artificial intelligence itself, knowingly or unknowingly, can actually have an impact upon those that are dependent upon it. So a great way of explaining it is facial recognition, what a criminal looks like, or hey, these particular behavior patterns, the style of clothing, the brands that you wear, the vehicle that you drive, all of these things could basically play into furthering either stereotypes and making things worse, or they can basically say, hey, these are the types of news articles that you read, and it can be biased towards the things that it thinks you're interested in. I mean, one of my projects from school, which I haven't used, before, but it was a reading application. As you're reading an article, it would either speed up or slow down the articles, the pace of what's written inside of the article to keep you more engaged or to get you to the next nugget of information dynamically. So even back in the early 90s, people were understanding that you can change people's experiences just by adding and removing words in an article. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Subliminally, you're not even paying attention to it. You just,
If you do it right, then the person doesn't know, right? And if the person doesn't know, that's not a bad thing sometimes, because they might have been going down a path that could have led to something bad occurring, or the wrong bias could have been added. You can have bias for good as opposed to bias for bad, right? So I just want to make sure I get that point across. It's not, bias is typically a negative word, but in software, it can mean, you're going down a path of good, not a path of bad.
yeah.
That's for the non-techies out there, right?
But do you think that, this is something that is going to be after kind of the initial phase of the rollout of artificial intelligence, or do you think something that 15 years from now, that bias is still going to be written out there and it's just going to be continually an issue?
Okay, so you ready for the futurist in me? I think artificial intelligence is actually dumb. I think it's kind of silly.
Really?
I think artificial intelligence is going the way of the dinosaur. And that's a bold statement, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, while other people are hearing about artificial intelligence, if you're talking to people using that term, then they're already dating themselves, right? That's my point, right? So that's the past. That is where we don't want to be. That is where danger occurs, right? What I care about is augmented intelligence, right? It's another AI. And the augmented means you have your own information, you have your own thought patterns, and you're augmenting by adding additional information and helping people make decisions, as opposed to making the decisions for that person. Does that make sense?
Got it. Okay.
So augmented intelligence, right? That's basically what we're talking about, is where, I guess, I hate using this as an example, but it works, is like lenses that you could put on your eyes that give you information about your environment, which is the next step after Google Glass. And if you can basically put those lenses in and you can ask questions and you can hear the answers, right? Then what ends up happening is information is always available. And you can basically change your experience, whether you're at a theme park, whether you're in a stadium and you're getting stats immediately while you're watching so you can understand what's going on. You can actually have translation done. I have devices here that, I can actually click a button and someone could be speaking in a different language and it basically translates in real time and tells me what they're saying in English. I mean, if you can do that and always be available and always have information at your fingertips if you want it, then you can have some really amazing experiences instead of just going through, life and missing all of these really cool opportunities around you. Meaning, I can't tell you how many times I've been at the airport, I've been at hotels, I've been in the same city as people I went to high school with, people that are friends, and we were like, oh, I was there too. If we could have been connected with more information and we could have figured out a way to basically connect, you are no longer isolated. You're not that guy online, you know what I mean, sitting at a computer and not knowing how to engage with people. You're having conversation, topics, and information in ways that allow you to engage with others at a very high level.
Part of that scares me because I think at a certain point, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have these augmented kind of technology, if I'm using that term correctly,
That's fine.
implemented into your whatever it is, your lens, or even ultimately they're talking about installing some sort of chip or adapter inside of your brain that gives you all these additional
That's the
information.
Tesla approach, right?
Yeah, like the additional capabilities. If you go that route, do you think it's ever going to get to a point where certain human beings lose that kind of inherent advantage when it comes to them, like yourself, being an MIT graduate, spending all these years and getting an education? Now all of a sudden, a person with $1 million can go and install this chip, and maybe they're just as
right
smart
there
as
too,
you.
right? Oh, but I mean, that's the question, like that's it. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Can you actually install something and have all those memories and all that education just, turned on
Yeah,
in a matter of
that's what scares
few.
me.
I mean, I think it's scary, but it's also a way to advance, you know, society in general. But it does create, and this is where the future is come in. It creates these ghettos of the haves and the have-nots. The whole thing here is you have to balance the capabilities that you bring about in such a way that you increase the people that have while reducing the people who don't have or have not. So one of the cool things about AWS, take for instance, or at least what I've been doing and what I've been following ever since I left Amazon, is the impact that it has on communities in third world countries and how they can hire for the first time. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the artificial intelligence, and I did say artificial intelligence, right, is based upon humans actually training those systems. And where do you find humans who know the difference between a sign and, a box, or people who can read, what's on something and can actually train the system into understanding the shape of a duck versus a dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, but it's very time consuming, but it can actually allow for economies to grow in places that you would never think, the large, Fortune 500s or the 100s in the tech space are actually hiring and sort of generating revenue. So I can tell you right now that there are people in Africa and India and numerous countries who are basically opening up shop and building out systems where entire villages and people are bringing tech into those spaces and moving money and revenue and opportunity from the Western sort of world over to those third world countries. It's amazing. It's
Yeah, you bring up
unbelievable
a
how
lot,
it's
especially
happening.
what you just said about Africa. I mean, what Akon's doing over there is absolutely unbelievable.
I do follow exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
is amazing, absolutely amazing. And you hit on a few different things. You're talking about the experience, because I mean, it's like when you deal with technology, it's almost like it's like technology overload sometimes. You know what I mean? Like we need to like shut down and kind of, everybody's talking about meditation and stuff, right? You
Go
got to
read a
shut the
book.
noise. Yeah, go read a book and just
Go out
shut
in
stuff off.
nature.
100%. But one thing that you mentioned is real time, like what you were saying about people speaking other languages, that increases the experience. So like if you were,
Exactly.
like I was out this last weekend, I could have been able to talk with, the folks next to me that were speaking another language real time. That's where it gets great. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
pretty powerful.
I can honestly say I've been to other countries, leverage that little device, and it's sort of like Star Trek, it's like,
Yeah.
or you just basically talk into it and then you let it sort of translate for you. It's so much fun, and everyone seems to love it, and they're trying to figure out how in the world it works, but that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah,
Right?
that's awesome. Yeah, you can't say any better than that.
Yeah,
For
right.
sure. What's next for Sirqul? What's next for Rob, man? Because you always developing companies and selling companies, and
Well,
just a great brain and a great mind. So
the number one thing that I have been doing is I've been helping others, right?
yeah.
That's the beauty of what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to help others.
Mhm.
So whether that is by sharing the technology that we've built,
Mhm.
whether it's advising and offering sort of input based upon my experiences, or explaining how this is what really works, and what gets me out of bed is some of these particular companies I've worked with have actually exited themselves already. And so the cool thing is, or they're partnering with people that I've actually put them in touch with. And those particular, both businesses are basically coming together. So there's some really cool things around wireless that's coming up that I can't wait to be able to talk to people about. It's unbelievable. There's connectivity issues. There's new applications coming. And there's definitely a lot of hardware related things coming too. And so within the next year or so, I think you'll be seeing a shift. And then a few years after that, it's going to be a bigger shift, because the people who are coming up now, the kids, are expecting a certain level of access that we used to be afraid of.
Yeah.
But they are just expecting it to just be there, always on, always available. And it's those guys, it's those kids, it's that generation that is leading to my favorite statement, which is the people who control information and have access to that information and know how to sift through millions and millions of, or large petabytes of information per person to actually come up with something that is useful for people like them or for that one person. It's those people who are going to win. It's those people who are going to figure out how to fit into this new economy and these new sort of paradigms. And I want to be there, and I just can't wait for it to actually happen.
Yeah, that's exciting. You want to slow time down, but you want to speed it up at the same time, man. But and also, you got to tell us afterwards. You got to tell Chris and I what should we invest in? What stock should we buy?
Yeah.
Well, I just said it, right?
I know you did. That's what,
just
you got to give me some names. You got to give me specific names. You could just use code.
Not on camera, I'm not.
That's what I said. That's what I said often. After this.
Yeah.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to interview you, Rob.
Definitely, Rob.
We've been wanting to do this for a long time, man. And
Well,
I'm
thank
happy
you for having me. I really appreciate
seriously.
it.
Yeah, you're
And
a great
hopefully I didn't
mind.
bore you to death.
No, you didn't.
It.
No, not at all. Not at all. You're a great mind, and it's and you can put it in the nuggets for people to understand it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So especially me, I'm a little slow. Chris understands the tech. But no, it's great. Where can people find you at if they wanted to reach out to Sirqul?
Oh, it's just Sirqul, www.sirqul.com, and it's spelled weird.
Yeah.
SIRQUL.com. And all you have to do is just send an email to, it's easy, rob@sirqul.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Rob, appreciate you hanging out with us with the Vegas Sirqul, and you'll be able to see an interview at thevegassirqul.com. So thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.